I'm Emily Byrne. I'm the Executive Director of Connecticut Voices for Children, which is a think and do tank here in Connecticut.
I'm Eric Clemens, founding CEO and president of Connecticut Center for Arts and Technology.
My name is Kamel Scott. I am the training director and co-director.
My name is Issa Mujahid. I'm the founder and organizing director of CT Core, Organize Now.
William Johnson. I am co-founder with my wife, Janine Johnson, of Take Action Running.
I'm Abby Anderson. I'm the executive director of the Connecticut Juvenile Justice Alliance. We were introduced to the Narrative Project through reading Mercy's columns, and were really intrigued by the things that she had to say. They were really in line with a lot of the issues we cared about, and then saw that she had her own consulting company, so really reached out and tried to make a relationship and see if it was something that could work out.
So I first met Mercy in 2016, and at that time she was working for the New Haven Board of Education.
I had called on Mercy to do some of the narrative for CONCAT and realized that she had formed her own entity, which I was super proud of, called the Narrative Project.
So I learned of the Narrative Project 3 years ago and knew of the founder, probably met her about 5 or 6 years ago.
I think when we first met, Mercy was just getting the Narrative Project up and running. And then after Issa and I struck out and started working on CT Core, I remember Mercy had approached us and we sat down and talked about what the Narrative Project had to offer us.
When she started this project, I thought there's no one more perfect to help support the work and advance our mission here at Voices.
I ran into Mercy at the Graustein Memorial Fund, and she asked me an essential question, right? She actually didn't even say hi. She said, "Who's writing the CONCAT story?" And it was something that I had been thinking about, but didn't really have the time to really get traction around those thoughts. And that question stayed with me for at least a year. And then lo and behold, here I am now having to really kind of craft a narrative for the impact and really the movement of CONCAT.
We're working with the Narrative Project in order to work on some of our master messaging projects. So how do we talk about what we do? How do we talk about the values and the way that we're trying to do our work? And then how do we talk about some of the issues that we care about in ways that are going to engage just regular people, but also then the people who are decision makers?
When we actually first started working with the Narrative Project, we were in the middle of organizing an arts event. So that was the first time we really got to connect. And even though it was really late in the event and there was a lot of information to communicate in a short amount of time, the Narrative Project brought so much skill and so much capacity to that.
And the Narrative Project helped us launch our first race. They came in and actually listened to and actually recorded, if I'm not mistaken, the story of how we created Take Action Running and why we created it.
The Narrative Project has really been much more than I had expected. I was thinking primarily we would get some external communication support, but the Narrative Project has been really helping us from A to Z to develop a communication strategy, even helping us to develop some internal communications, operations.
Media relations and social media to document layout and presentation.
Press releases, on op-eds, on paragraphs that we can use over and over again in grants, in those kinds of pieces. We're doing some training on how to speak to the media and how to work with social media and different platforms.
The Narrative Project has really given us added capacity in terms of how we talk and think about the impact that we are making and the impact we endeavor to make.
The Narrative Project came in and produced a really beautiful program for us, helped us to get the word out on social media with visuals that we had never used before, and gave us a lot of really great consultation and advice to help us promote the event and make it really successful on the day of.
Each time as we came back to the Narrative Project and said, listen, this is what we did last year, we found that they were able not just to talk about it, they actually unpacked all of our data, which I'm going to tell you, we really didn't understand that you could actually unpack data, look at target groups, And they were able to unpack it in a way and give suggestions on how to leverage last year's data to launch for the following year.
Facts matter and words matter. And for us as a research organization, a think tank that is rooted in facts and truth, we need to ensure that that message is spread in a way that is heard.
I think stories are powerful. I think stories are the universal language of all people. And to have someone who is incredibly thorough and equipped and a storyteller herself, as Mercy is, for her to really be able to give us language around what we have done and endeavored to do, I think it's really just a powerful tool. And for her to be from New Haven and to be a Black woman in this business of storytelling and creating narratives is even more powerful to me.
We're looking to tell a comprehensive story that includes a bunch of different issues and perspectives. And when you look at a narrative, that's what that is. It's not a one-time thing. And we're looking and participating in a movement. And a movement requires a narrative, not a one-liner.
So few people are actually doing that. I mean, for the amount of stories that we get told, the amount of media that we're fed every single day, the mainstream media is really not promoting the stories of the people whose stories most urgently need to be told.
Narrative is really important. Narratives and ideas exist and are consumed and justify why inequity exists, and paints a story that can either create apathy and acceptance for inequity and kind of going with the status quo, or an understanding that things aren't functioning in the way that they should or could.
The Narrative Project creates the right frame for us to ensure that sustainable change can occur.
And I believe only mission-driven organizations understand that. Mass media outlets are great, and they do have a purpose, but I think when you're trying to tell a local story, and people use the word local and community in very different ways, when I say local, I'm actually talking about the people who are most affected by it. Having a mission-driven organization, I think, is an intentional way of making sure that story is communicated correctly and authentically.
And being able to craft our own narrative creates an opening to do all the other work that we're setting out to do.
It's really important for us as freedom fighters to find ways to get those full stories out there, unedited by anybody's interest, and really just in service of the truth.